Hey everyone, this is Dr. William Clark here. So glad that you're joining us for the Dr. William Clark podcast. This podcast is focused on helping nonprofits simplify the fundraising processes they use so they can build six-figure programs without chasing funders. I don't know about you, but I wish I knew this information before I started working in the nonprofit world years ago. But I'm here to help you build six-figure programs, and I'm here to help you on your journey. So would you be so kind to not only listen to this podcast, would you also rate, would you also subscribe, would you also comment on this podcast wherever you're listening? And lastly, would you also be kind enough to share this podcast with a friend or a colleague who you believe can benefit from the content we're sharing? Now, we are here to help and support you on this journey, and I believe that we have some resources that can help you quite a bit. So go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, and share this podcast. Now, let's jump into our show. Hey everybody, this is Dr. William Clark here, your host of the Dr. William Clark podcast. Glad to be with you guys for another episode. This is the podcast where we focus on nonprofit, just about nonprofit everything, but we do talk about nonprofit fundraising. That's the focus of our work, and we help our clients simplify their fundraising strategies without chasing funders. Super excited to be with you guys for another episode. Wanted to briefly talk about thinking about your nonprofit differently. We got some folks in Clubhouse who are going to join the conversation in just a moment. But I wanted to share some thoughts with you guys from the perspective of someone who's been doing this for quite a while, and just giving some insight into the perspective of someone who is leading a nonprofit, who is a part of the charge, who's on the front line. And I talked to so many people on social media, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, Clubhouse, etc., and YouTube as well, where they're looking to figure out how to move from where they are to their next level. And their next level, for most people, speaks to or is really connected to the idea of launching a nonprofit, and in some cases, doing it full time, or at least spending more time on the nonprofit more than they are right now. And at the end of the day, a lot of people are wondering, how do you make that shift, and how do you make that change, and how do you grow, and how do you build, and how do you do, and how do you do, and how do you do? I got to tell you, I mean, there are some basic things I can say that are pretty ubiquitous across all business platforms or all business opportunities, whereas having a plan, having a strategy, having a funding plan, having a goal in mind, all that good stuff, having a vision. But I do want to kind of talk about some of the nitty-gritty things that isn't talked about, that isn't quite as sexy as saying, hey, build a plan, create a strategic plan, or hey, develop a funding plan, or hey, have a master grant application, or hey, have a budget. Those are the 4 documents, matter of fact, that I always recommend to my clients to develop, and certainly people do come aboard and join our Nonprofit Fundraising Master Class to learn how to build those particular platforms and systems for their organization. At the end of the day, it's really, really important for you to kind of think more broadly about the work that you're doing. And the question is, how do you do that? And then how do we think about our nonprofits differently? How do we reconsider and repurpose our thoughts around our nonprofits? One of the things I do encourage you to do, and this is with any business you're starting, and this piece of advice is coming from someone who has launched several businesses, who has sustained several businesses, who has grown several businesses. One of the things that I have felt, or have seen rather, as an important piece of the work is making sure that I always bring a skill to the table. Whatever business I'm launching, whatever business I'm a part of, whatever team I'm leading, whatever organization I'm growing or building, one of the things that I've always found super valuable is bringing a skill to the table. So the question is, what does that mean? When we talk about a skill, we're talking about a competency. We're talking about something you do very, very well. Even if you weren't leading an organization or leading a team, what is that thing you do that people can say, yep, you know what? He or she can do this, and they're doing it very well. They always do it very well. What do you bring to the table, and how well do you do it? I have found over the years that I've been running and building businesses, running and building teams, running and building nonprofit organizations, helping my clients do the same, that a skill, a thing you do very well, is super valuable, and it puts you in a position to not only add extreme value to your organization, but it puts you in a position to think differently about the leadership or the necessary leadership your organization must have or be in position to display when you are leading a group of people. At the end of the day, Leadership is all about influencing a group of people to achieve a common goal. What is the goal that you're trying to accomplish? How do you bring people on board or put people on a bus with you to come alongside with you to hit that goal? And then how do you influence them to make that goal a reality? This is the call. This is the purpose of leading. This is the purpose of building. This is the purpose of nonprofit entrepreneurship, if you will. So what is it that you're targeting? But when you start to target a particular goal and a particular outcome that is relevant to you and to your organization and to your clients and to all of the people that you're trying to serve and add value to, the question that you got to answer at this point is, what skill do I bring to the table? What is it that I'm really, really, really good at? So if I want to give you an example, one of the things I'm really good at is just straight out planning and strategy. Now, while I'm classically trained in those things, there are some people who end up getting certifications, such as in certifications in project management. I did not go that route. However, I'm classically trained in academia in that space around strategy and leadership and planning, etc. Prior to getting classically trained, I learned all of what I know and most of what I know and most of what has been affirmed in academia from my mother. My mother is a person that goes to the extreme when it comes to planning and preparation for almost everything in her life. And as I've watched her over the years, I've adopted some of those same principles, some of those same ideas, and brought them to my personal life. And as I began to figure out what I wanted to do with my life and my career, where I wanted to build, where I wanted to grow, one of the things I brought over to my work, my businesses, my clients' work, and I continue to do this today, is the skill of planning, is the skill of strategizing, it's the skill of thinking forward and putting into practice or putting into place the elements that's going to help us achieve the goal and to become successful. So in every situation that I'm in, and I'm in a situation right now where we have to fill some gaps, where we have to fill some holes that have been left behind, we have to really cross some bridges, build bridges in some cases. One of the things that's happening and one of the things that's helping us get to that point is my role, not only as leader, but my role as planner in chief, my role as strategist, my role as someone who is helping thinking through, if not leading the efforts of thinking through how to get from point A to point B. Another gift and skill that I bring to the table is my nerdiness around technology. I love technology. I love how technology adds value to our work. I love how technology helps us do things and solve problems and become more efficient. And certainly as I serve my clients, whether it's the clients through our consulting company or our clients through our nonprofit organization, technology plays a very big role in how we do that. And so all of the apps, all of the ideas that are introduced from a technology standpoint comes from me. It's one of the things I bring to the table. Now, I'm not the only one who's introducing technology to our team and to our organization, to our customers, etc., but I am a proponent of that and of that culture. When you think about those two things I've introduced to you that I bring to the table, attitude of planning and the use of technology, this speaks to one of the things or two of the things that allows me to sustain the work that I do. And I encourage you as a nonprofit leader, as a nonprofit entrepreneur, to think about, what do you bring to the table that makes a difference, or what can make a difference in the work that you're doing or planning to do with your nonprofit organization? How can it advance the cause? How can it help you reach your goal? How can it help you better serve your customers? How can it help you change the trajectory of the organization that you're planning for, whether you're on the board or whether you're an executive director or whether you are trying to launch something or you're just on a team of organization, a nonprofit, and you're looking to be a part of their journey or that journey? What is it that you bring to the table? When you think about these skills you bring to the table, it begins to change the way you think about a nonprofit, and it changes the way how you think about the operations of a nonprofit. I will tell you, the other thing that I bring to the table is my perspective of business, right? I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a serial entrepreneur, launched several businesses, grown several businesses that have helped sustain my family. And those businesses and those practices and those experiences not only have helped me sustain my family, but a lot of what I've learned in business has influenced what I teach and what I live out in my world and in my life as a nonprofit leader, as a nonprofit consultant. And that perspective influences how we approach systems, how we approach problems, how we solve problems, how we strategize, how we engage our customers, how we do all types of things that makes our work a reality. So This is what I want you to think about when it comes to your nonprofit organization. This is what I want you to think about when it comes to building your nonprofit organization. How can you bring something to the table that's going to make a significant difference? And then more importantly, which is the question on the floor right now, how can your skill, how can your ability help you think differently about your nonprofit organization? The hottest topic in the nonprofit world right now, and it has been for forever, is how do we sustain? And sustainability speaks to how do we keep money coming in to continue the work that we're doing so that we can serve our customers and do the great work that matters most. Sustainability is critical, and I suspect that always in the future, sustainability will always be a question. Why do I say that? Well, for every business, that's the question on the floor. For every business, no matter what type of business you're leading, a ministry, a nonprofit, a t-shirt business, a shoe business, a real estate business, whatever business you're running, the whole idea of that business is to become sustainable. The whole idea of that business is to position it to generate revenue and to create resources for you and your family and to create jobs for other people and, of course, to serve the needs of your customer. Sustainability is super, super, super critical. So in the nonprofit arena, this is not about just, hey, what else can we do to get money outside of grants, which is obviously the question that we always want to answer. But the other question that we want to answer around sustainability is what else can we do to generate revenue that's relevant to our skill set, relevant to our abilities, relevant to our capacity, relevant to what we bring to the table. And when you think about all that you've done, all that you do as a leader, when you think about all that you do as a nonprofit entrepreneur and the things that you bring to the table, those things are not just gifts for the moment. Those things are gifts that keep on giving and that add significant value to the nonprofit and significant value to your customer. And these are the things that help you think differently about your nonprofit organization. So with that being said, I'm going to pause for a moment and invite our Clubhouse family to come on in into the conversation. If you're listening to this conversation after it has been published, go ahead and leave a comment wherever you're listening to it on the podcast platform, Facebook, YouTube, etc. And just let me know. What are you doing to think differently about your nonprofit? What skills do you bring to the table? With that being said, we'll invite folks up to the stage here on Clubhouse. Want to invite Rebecca to the mic and to the stage. Rebecca, how are you?
I'm fabulous, Dr. Clark. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. So we're talking about thinking differently about your nonprofit. And what I proposed was that your skill and your ability is the thing that helps you think differently about your nonprofit. So if you could say, what is it that you do very, very well that helps you think differently about your nonprofit?
I wrote these down as you were asking the question. I kind of made a little worksheet for myself. I wrote 4 things down. I'm a networker, a team leader, a trainer, and a faith builder and leader. So regardless of the industries that I found myself in, and it's been directly network marketing, it's been directly working in corporate America, working in nonprofit sector, working in the faith-based realm, regardless of the widget we were selling or the offering that was there, those were the traits, the skills, the proficiencies that I was reliable to deliver across the board.
I appreciate that. I want to go a little deep here. Would love for you to take us a little deeper on the fourth one. What is a faith builder as you define it, and then how does it show up in the work that you do?
Well, I'm a holistic health practitioner and an ordained Christian minister, and I have my own nonprofit and vision, and I would love to talk with you about that. But I have found that even in secular place in the marketplace, people need something to believe in to drive home a mission and vision and get the buy-in from their organizational team and extend that out into the marketplace to get the buy-in from consumers. And I'm someone who has quite naturally developed an ability to build faith and hope up and then lead people with that faith and hope in mind, leading the way, such that the structure, systems, and practices and the blood, sweat, and tears become worth it, become an investment, become enjoyable, And that's been something I've just been reliable to do. As you were asking that question, I'm like, at first I was applying it to the ministry that I'm building, and then I started really looking at 30 years of network marketing and team leading teams across the country, and what I was constantly doing was helping people create the vision that they had for their lives or their organization, their companies, and then building the systems and practices that would go and fulfill that, but constantly renewing the hope of the faith of the vision and the mission.
I love that because there are going to be moments in business, particularly in your nonprofit, right, where your faith
Yes.
or the faith of your staff becomes questionable. They start to question, the mission. They start to question the purpose. They start to question everything. And what I think I hear you say is that I am the one that helps people stay focused on the big picture and to not lose hope in our ability and capacity to reach XYZ goal. Is that what you're saying?
It is. And what I kind of have called myself over the years in a corporate capacity is that I'm the corporate conscience. But what you've said is exactly correct. To the point that recently the nonprofit that I have founded, me and the Lord had a conversation, and I realized I'm not meant to be the director of ministries for the nonprofit, for the ministry I've founded. I'm meant to be the founder. I'm meant to be the visionary. I'm meant to be the leader. But I'm not meant to be the director of the ministries. That's someone else that should be working with me. And I've now got that person in place, but it's now birthed a whole new realm of possibilities. It's like someone told me that I could get out of the driver's seat and sit on top of the car. I don't even know how they put it. What it's done to free me up, that's given me this other perspective of how I could really be running my organization and empowering teams of teams to be part of the organization.
So this brings up another question, right? Or at least another conversation piece, which is, it's so easy to talk about what we bring to the table, but what we don't talk about enough is the output of that. And part of the output is what you just said. And that is when I find my lane of contribution where I can maximize my gifts and abilities, then I can be free to be myself, but I'm also free to let someone else be great within the business, within the organization. Talk us through a little bit what happens when you let go and someone else is allowed the freedom to be great even within your business.
Well, it was right there in some of the questions you were asking at the top of the conversation when I was listing the traits and the proficiencies that I have regardless of where I go. What was right there along with it, it's the heads and tails of the same coin. There's what I contribute, but on the other side of that is what I don't. And better yet, probably what I shouldn't. And as I've become more comfortable with acknowledging who I am, what I am here for, I've gotten more comfortable acknowledging what I'm not here for. Therefore, making room for someone for whom that is their lane, that is their gift. And I want them to be them. And that was the breakthrough for me several years ago of building the ministry that I have is, this ministry isn't built on me. Jesus, of all people, could have done it by himself, and he didn't. He still made it of the people, for the people, by the people. And that's exactly what I have felt on my spirit about this ministry, is that this ministry that I'm building is meant to have the nonprofit component. It's meant to have a for-profit arm. It's meant to work in collaboration with many professionals who can fulfill their calling within this umbrella. And that makes the body whole. I don't need a bunch of thumbs. I just need a couple, right? One for each hand, right? And so as I've looked at what I'm building as a body, then I am out to connect with every part needed and let them be what they are gloriously. And that frees me up because I have been trying to be all things to all people, and it's exhausting. And I'll die on the cross for everybody because if they can't do it, I will. And that's exhausting. And it really requires, to build what I'm building, really is going to require people that are unashamed, unapologetic to be who and what they are, and they will find a home in this ministry. I promise, because there's a part for everybody, and that doesn't just free me up. It empowers me to build. It empowers me to think bigger. It empowers me to be bolder, because I know there are going to be more people standing at my back, because now it's ours, not mine. And it just changes the context that I'm doing everything through.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question, and then I want to invite Anita to the conversation. You're talking about empowering people, freeing people up to be themselves, to be great within the umbrella of your organization, your business, your nonprofit, etc. How do you fight the temptation to take it back when things aren't progressing the way you want them to go, or as fast, or this is not going as fast as you want them to? Talk to us about how do you fight that temptation?
I'm laughing because you don't want to take my coaching on this, okay?
I hear you.
You want to do not what I did.
I hear you.
I was in a life-threatening car crash.
Wow.
March 25th of this year. I'm actually literally just in these recent weeks returning to work. I've had to relearn how to dress and bathe and eat and literally put my life all back together. And when I was immobilized within the first couple of days of the accident, in the hospital for days, and it's COVID, so I couldn't have like my peeps with me. I was by myself, and then the hospital people, and some of that was not great. I really got clear between me and my maker that I have a tendency to waste time even when I don't mean to. Waste money even when I don't mean to. Trust people and tolerate people's shenanigans far too long, even when I don't mean to. And God and I had a really straight talk, like, this is what's got to stop. I'm taking you into a future, and a bunch of stuff, people and things and habits and ways and mindsets can't go with you. And everything got scaled back to really bare bones, Doc, because it really became about what do I need every single day. I was being full-time caregiven. I have 2 boys. I'm a single mom. That my children were watching me, and I was having to think, okay, I can't do for them the mom things I do. I'm going to have to be for them who inspires them right now. I'm going to have to teach them through how I'm living, how I'm being. And I realized that was very different than the life I'd been building with them for years before. I realized that I had spent years burning the candle at both ends in the name of I'm going to make it for my family when they were getting an hour a day from me. I was building something in the name of people should have holistic health and wealth sovereignty, and I was going broke and I was exhausted and sick. And so I had to live the truth of what I taught. I had to stop being a hypocrite. And I had to admit where I was wrong, reflect, and pray for it to be revealed to where I was wrong. And I'll tell you, it was like my life cleared out. 95% of who and what I've talked to, did, saw, thought, spoke every day is gone. I am living in a new city, in a new home, with a new vehicle. My body is repairing. The people I associate with are completely different people, except for a handful. And who I'm talking to now, I'm having conversation with, like, are you called to something greater than yourself and you need to plug into something to fulfill it, and you know it, then I'm who you should be talking to. And it's just radically changed my approach. So I really do say, don't do what I did. Don't have somebody run a red light and hit you, okay, and alter your life that way. I don't have sight restored to my right eye yet. I don't know if I ever will. My bones are healing. Like, it's been ugly and brutal, but amazing. And God makes beauty out of ashes. So I'm not complaining. But if there's anything I could say is stop. Even the Indy 500 cars that are barreling through lanes have to stop. And they really have to stop. They can't slow down, they can't kind of stop. They have to totally stop. And so I urge people to stop and look at what's hurting in your own life, because a broken cup can't pour out properly. And you have to be whole and well to let your work, whatever it is, To let your work truly be an authentic extension and expression of you successfully with sustainability, you have to be okay. Your marriage, your house, your bowels, your budget, you have to be okay. And if you're not, then get okay and get the help to get okay so that you can reorganize the energetic flow that you pour out and pull in using. And it will radically alter the potential, possibility, and the productivity of what you're envisioning. Assert.
I think that you shared obviously a personal story here, and I appreciate you sharing this with our audience. And I do think
Sure.
that your story is something we also take heed to, and that is we don't want to wait until a life altering situation occurs before we take the time to be patient, to be thoughtful, to be intentional about what we're doing. Because we can be so focused on the work and so focused on the mission and so focused on the purpose that we think that the best thing to do in a moment situation is to continue to fight, and move forward, or to sacrifice at our
Yes.
cost, right? And the truth is, that's not what nonprofits do. Now, I will tell you, people tend to think that's the role of a nonprofit to sacrifice until the bitter end, till we have nothing. No business can operate that way. And I love what you said, that a broken cup cannot pour correctly because it's going to end up spouting its liquid all over the place, creating messes. Whether it's a clear liquid or a staining liquid, is going to create a mess and cause a disruption. Is going to disrupt your process. And I hear you, and I think as we're going to bring Anita and Roz to the conversation here, the question that we asked you, Rebecca, is, how do we fight the temptation? And I think in part, I'm going to say to you and to the audience what someone said to me yesterday in Bible study, and that is, you just got to want to. I'm not sure there's a deeper answer than that besides saying you just got to want to change. You got to want to stop. You got to want to do something different. And I think I just appreciate you sharing that and the context of where you are. And I'm so thankful that you're back, at least to a portion of where you used to be. And I pray for your ongoing healing and redemption to wherever you're trying to get to.
Thank you. It's all part of the process, and I will be rescheduling with you. We have a consultation to have, so I'm still very interested in working with you directly.
Well, absolutely. I am looking forward to that, and especially as I listen to your story, I just can't wait to hear more about what you got going on and how I can be a part of your journey.
For sure. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for listening. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Please stay with us on stage. Anita, what's up? How are you?
Well, hello, Dr. Clark, and the rest of the crew that's here in this house. I am the co-founder of Fighting Cancer Today. We are newly formed. This year made our first year in September. We help cancer patients heal from the hospital to the home. We do things non-medical. We are not medical whatsoever. But what we found is, let me state this. My daughter is a cancer patient. She is the founder. I'm the caregiver, and I'm the co-founder. And what we found when she would go to her treatments and so forth was that many people that we saw reoccurring, some of them had someone with them, some of them had snacks, some of them had their personalized blankets, some of them came equipped, some of them had families or a spouse, but they were in the waiting room because the child was too young, so they couldn't come back. So that meant the person who was receiving treatment appeared to be alone. But when there was one incident that really moved my spirit, and it was when I had dropped my daughter off at the door, and she had gone in, and I parked, and then I go in after her. There was someone waiting for transportation, and we go back, and my daughter went every 3 weeks, and it was 8 to 10 hours. Okay, so it was pretty much all day. And there was this young lady. She was waiting on transportation outside when we got there. And I'm talking about like it's 7 o'clock in the morning. And when I go out to get us something to eat, 11:30ish, this lady's still waiting on transportation. And I'm looking and I'm saying to myself, how in the world do you get treatment? And then you have to come out and wait. So I said to the lady, I said, are you spiritual? And she said, yes, ma'am, I am. I said, say a quick prayer. I said, and I'm going to go and get my car, and I'm going to take you home. So by the time I pulled up, I said, do you feel safe? And she said, yes, ma'am. She gets in the car, and I take her home. So then, 3 weeks later, because it was every 3 weeks, I said, I'm going to start making extra snacks. I'm going to start picking up little blankets. I'm going to start picking up little coloring books for the little kids in the waiting area. And keep in mind, they have some of these things. But my daughter and I were talking, and she was saying, well, Mom, life changes when you're diagnosed with cancer. And my daughter was an executive, and she went from being an executive one day to being diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer the next day, and the whole world changed. No longer an executive, trying to figure out, finances. So we came up with Fighting Cancer Today. So what we do is we send care packages. We do newly diagnosed patients, and we do those that are still dealing with cancer and treatment. We provide gas cards. We pay utility bills. We do cable bills, cell phone bills, and then we have certain unique circumstances that show up. Like we had one young lady, she was getting treatment, but no one was there with her dog. So we try to find somebody to take care of the dog. So when I saw the topic for this room about thinking about nonprofit differently, we are all unique. We all have personal things that go on in our lives. And if we truly tap into the love thy neighbor, we all have a nonprofit inside of us, because everyone needs help. Everyone needs support. And we are all capable of helping each other. So we started in Southern Illinois. I just launched in Northwest Indiana and wound up with a corporate sponsor from someone who was actually repairing our roof. The company, and I'm going to say their name because they're amazing. They repaired our roof. Come to find out, there were some things that went way wrong. I gave someone a check to hold, and I'm just going to share this simply because sometimes things can look bad. But sometimes things happen. One thing will happen so that another one can occur. Now I'm going to repeat that. Sometimes things that are not good may happen so that something can occur.
Yep, absolutely.
So in the process of the check being cashed, it pulling everything out of my check and everything out of my savings, and I'm still having an insurance check that has a hold on it. The young man who put a post-it on my check, which was supposed to be held not until when he took it in. It was supposed to be held 2 days later and put in that 2 days later. I wound up meeting the owner whose father was diagnosed with cancer. For him, he donated a $20,000 roof to a cancer patient in Northwest Indiana starting 2022. The deductible that we were to pay him, he told me do not pay the deductible, and he donated $1,000 to Fighting Cancer Today. So when we truly look for ways to help others, and when we allow ourselves to feel, whether it's a devastating pain or whether it's a little bit of hurt, and we sit in it long enough to see, okay, I don't like feeling this way, what can I do? We can make a big difference. So I personally have to say I have enjoyed listening. Rebecca, I heard what you said. I felt it even more, because sometimes through devastation, through hardship, we evolve as our best spiritual self. So keep kicking. Keep doing what you're doing.
Amen.
Keep inspiring. Keep uplifting. And just know that I am going to follow you all. And I just pray that all succeed and that we continue to join rooms like this and glean from each other so that we can continue to become our best selves.
You know, Anita, thank you for sharing that story, and that story is beautiful for so many reasons. But talk to me a moment. Just share with us, our audience who's listening on podcast or some video version of this, what is it that you bring to the table, or what is it that you always bring to the table that leads to these special moments similar to what you just described?
No one is invisible. No one is invisible. If they're a homeless person on the street, they're not invisible. Oxygen is given to all of us. So I bring the human form to it. I'm present and I pay attention. I see opportunities where others see challenges. I'm fearless when it comes to, there is no dollar amount that scares me. There's no poverty level that scares me. So everyone has something to add. So for me, yes, I do have an executive background. And in many respects, without any disrespect to anyone, so what? So what? You don't need it. You don't need it. All you need to be is determined, fearless, and focused.
Is there more? Because I was feeling that. You don't have to stop.
Yeah, but it's really and truthfully. But I'm just sharing it with you. Okay, I know how to do a couple of spreadsheets. Yes, I have a business background, but more than all of that, it means nothing if you cannot connect with people.
Absolutely.
When you have a genuine spirit and when you show up authentic, and and I'm going to just share this. My mother said to me some years ago, I don't know what the function was, but my husband and I showed up, and my mother said, "You walked in this room like you owned it." She said, "Girl, you showed up in here like you was the stuff." Now, she didn't say that I thought I was the stuff. She didn't know how to articulate that when I showed up, she felt my spirit. We have to be able to magnetize people to us. We shouldn't be pulling people. They should be drawn to us. And that's a gift in many respects. But follow through. When you say you're going to do something, do it. When you open up your mouth and speak, be sincere. When you ask someone a question, listen. When they ask you a question, answer. That don't mean tell all your business. That don't mean give them all your financial reports. That don't mean open up the books. That means answer the question enough to draw them in so that you can see if it's worth having a real conversation. So you really and truthfully, I'm present. When I come into a room, even on Clubhouse, if I'm in this room, as long as I'm in this room, Dr. Clark, that meant there was something about the energy in this room. There was something about the personality of this room. Because there are other rooms out here. So feel what you feel and tell yourself the truth. If it don't feel right, it ain't right. If you have a question mark, that means no. Don't dance with it. Shrewd in business? Yes, I am. But shrewd does not mean underhanded in business. time is valuable. It means that my time is valuable, your time is valuable. Either we can connect on this level or we cannot. That means, okay, I'm not going to hold you up because you're probably missing somebody someplace else. Please don't hold me up because I'm probably missing somebody someplace else. And if I'm not able to help you, if I know somebody that can, I'm not going to hold that bag. I'm going to give you that bag because that bag actually was given to me to get to you. So selflessness, and that don't mean forget yourself. So we just have to be balanced. So in short, being present, looking for opportunities, even if it's on the ground. Don't be so high that you miss what you're stepping on or over or walking around. Pay attention. Opportunities are everywhere. Opportunities are everywhere. It's where we are in the midst of the opportunity.
Anita, I appreciate you sharing that. I think that was some really good stuff. And one of the things I connected with was, your comments around you got to see everybody. It doesn't matter who they are, and I relate to that. I had an experience today at an event that I was at where, there was an opportunity to see someone that clearly everyone else was ignoring. And the overwhelming feeling I felt, Anita, was, man, this brought me back to my days when I was working directly with the clients on the ground in public housing, right? And just that feeling of just wanting to help, wanting to serve, wanting to support, right? That person is just as important as the person who's willing to sign a contract or sign over a check or purchase a product or support a nonprofit, not the nonprofit I'm leading. And I remember, Anita, the lesson that taught me that. I was working in public housing, and one day we were told that we were going to be admitting a number of homeless families into our housing program. I said, okay. And I had a vision of what those folks would look like just to brace myself. And what I saw was not what I thought homelessness looked like. In fact, homelessness looked like me. Someone who on the outside had everything together, organized, clean, etc., but just was without a home because of a situation that happened, an emergency situation that happened. And it taught me such a huge lesson while serving my clients in the housing business, how to be supportive, how to be considerate, how to be thoughtful, how to see them as valuable, as meaningful, how to treat them as people who deserve quality. Not because I have pity, but because they deserve it, because they're a human being. And I think that just the overall message of that idea, right? I don't know if it was you or Rebecca who said the basic idea of loving neighbor as self, right? Seeing everybody as a person, as a human being, I think is one of the beautiful things about our industry. And it's probably one of the reasons many of us are in this industry serving in under the umbrella of, quote, nonprofit, because we get a chance to do that and to do it over and over and over again while still, having some focus on the bottom line, which is also important. But man, the chief thing that causes us to do what we do, the thing that drives us, is service to others.
That's it. That's it. How can I serve?
How can I serve? Yeah.
Serve you today.
Absolutely. And before we move on to Rise, I do wish your daughter a speedy recovery. I wish her many blessings. I wish her much health and prosperity. I wish her success in this fight. And then when this fight is over, I wish her success in future fights that she's going to be pursuing to get back to where she was or somewhere different or even better. And I also wish blessings and pray blessings upon you as a caregiver, as a person who's supporting someone who is going through this.
Well, thank you. I receive that wholeheartedly with my arms stretched back to the wall.
I'm gonna use that one. I stopped short of saying. I'm gonna use that. I stopped short of saying I received that, but I'm gonna say now, in the words of Anita, I received that with my arms stretched wide open. Oh yeah, I received that.
Amen.
Yeah, Roz, what's going on, my dear?
Nothing much, Dr. Clark. I'm not worthy to be up here on the stage. So I'm sipping and soaking.
Okay.
Sipping and soaking. That's what I'm doing.
So now you're lying because you know you belong on the stage. Just need to stop lying. So the question on the floor is, how do we think about our nonprofits differently? And what I introduced to the room. And let me just say, Roz, just give me a quick second to reset. My name is Dr. William
Yes,
Clark,
sir.
host of this room, host of the Dr. William Clark podcast. We talk about nonprofit fundraising and strategy. And for those who are listening to this particular podcast, and maybe this is the first time you heard me share or you heard this podcast for the first time, let me just tell you all the things that we're talking about today, everything that Rebecca and Anita shared, things that Roz is getting ready to share, this has a direct impact on your ability to fundraise and to sustain your nonprofit. So I hope that you're getting something out of this room. But Roz, what I introduced as the question on the floor that everyone's responding to is, what's the gift? What's the skill that you bring to the table that can help you think about your nonprofit differently and in turn help your team think about your nonprofit differently?
I think the skill that I have as a caregiver, not only as a caregiver to friends, but now as an entrepreneur, as a caregiver that has a caregiver business. So I went through all the credentialing and did everything and so on and so forth. But the reason why I think I have that special gift is because I see the impact on the family. When the people are discharged from the hospital, Dr. Clark, you and I have talked about that. And when you're discharged, normally what they do is they hand you a stack of paper, here's your medicine, follow up with your primary care, and that's it. They do nothing to say, okay, this is what we want you to make sure that you do, so as you transition from the hospital to go home, that you don't come back. So how much does it cost, not only the hospital, but the family, when this person has to go back? So I see it. I've seen it for years. I worked on the side with the insurance company, and then now I'm on the side with the family. So I see the struggle for those who don't have the money, for people to be able to, come back and go back and forth in the hospital. Because if you go back, who's going to sit with them? Well, I can't sit because if I don't work, I don't eat. I don't have enough FMLA. If I take FMLA, I only get 60% of my salary. It's a huge impact if we don't put the right things in place. So I was on the insurance side when they implemented this to all of the hospitals and the providers, saying, hey, if you don't bring them back and you make sure they don't come back, there's a bonus. However, there was no system put in place to try to train the family and to work with the providers to make sure that this didn't happen. So the place that God has put me in and saying, okay, you see it, but what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? So that's the unusual, or that is the specialization part of the nonprofit that I am working on, is to ensure that when they come home that they don't go back. That's the big thing. I don't want to go back to the hospital after I've already been there for 3, 4, 5, how many other days. Nobody wants to go back. But let's make sure that they don't go back. And so that's my calling to fulfill. And the reason why I'm so adamant about that is because of the stress. And I feel like it's not even I know that it's unnecessary, and it can be stopped just with some training, just with a little bit of training. So I'm hoping that I'm answering the question. I'm hoping that I'm helping those people to let them know that we all have a special niche. Even before the nonprofit has, formalized, there's already some things that I've been, working on and talking to some hospital administrators. So I'm hoping within the next 12 months, things will be where they need to be so that I can make those things happen. Dr. Clark, thank you for the time. And the ladies that have been on the stage, you have been a blessing. Thank you, Dr. Clark, for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely, Ross. I think, though, what you talked about, so important. You said that, the thing that you bring to the table with your nonprofit and your business is not only thinking about the customer who's in your care, but also thinking about the family who's behind, who's supporting that individual who is going through this health crisis. And dare I say, I think that's something to talk about as well as nonprofit providers. The importance of thinking about the family units behind these individuals we're serving. Now, depending on what you're doing, depending on what you're into, depending on the type of service you provide, that family structure can look dramatically different from nonprofit to nonprofit. It can look dramatically different from client to client. Regardless of how it could look and what it potentially looks like, there is a group of people who is concerned about the person, who loves the person that signed up for your program. And while they may feel that they are not in a position to help to support that person that they love dearly, it doesn't mean that they don't have an expectation of you as a nonprofit provider, as a nonprofit entrepreneur, to still care for their loved one and to provide a valuable service. And I think this is, for those that are in the room, for those who are listening to the replay of this podcast, those who are listening and watching on YouTube and Facebook, I think this part of this conversation that Roz introduced, which is caring for person and family, person and friends, person and community, helps broaden our thought process, helps broaden our approach, our thinking around our nonprofits. This is the topic, Roz, and I think you did hit it right. I do think that you added something very unique to the table, that thinking about our nonprofits differently has to include other people, even if they're not enrolled in the program. And the question is, how do we do that effectively? Any thoughts about how do we do that successfully, Roz? How do we do that consistently? How do we show consideration of the family behind the client, even though the family themselves are not a part of our program and what we're offering?
Even if they're not a part of the program, they're a part of the solution.
Yeah.
Even if they're not a part of the program, they're a part of the solution. So we also, as we are servicing, doing direct service to that one person, it still impacts a family and a community, whether it be church, work, hospital, whoever. If a person is sick, I'm gonna give you an example. My mother is sick. So not only does it impact my dad, but it impacts me, my brother, my sister, my aunts. It impacts, my thought process during the day. So it impacts me even though I'm long distance. It has an impact.
Right.
So how are we taking care of the emotions? How are we, making sure everybody stays in contact with one another? How are we supporting not only the person that's sick, but then those who are taking care of them?
Mm.
I'm just, how I always say it. This just Roz Jones talking.
Yeah.
And so this is the part that I see, not only on a professional level, but then also on a personal level. For 2 years, I haven't been able to see my mom because of COVID.
Mm.
For 2 years, December, I have not seen my mother because of COVID. What type of emotional impact does that have on me?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of impact does that have on a lot of people? I may not say nothing. This is the first time I've even shared it. I don't know why, but probably because it helps somebody in the audience or whoever. But as we do direct service, there's indirect service that also applies. Just like when we help those kids with the after-school program, not only does it help the child, but it helps the parents and the rest of the house.
Yep.
So there's not only direct care, there's indirect care. Indirect care is just as important as the care. Just like when you go in the hospital, even though a person is registering you at the emergency room, it's considered indirect care, but it's direct care. That customer service, it goes a long way. So hopefully, Dr. Clark, I hadn't gone all over the place, but I just wanted to say that we have to look at direct care as well as indirect care at the end of the day. I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Man, I have to take this. I have to own that piece that you're talking about when you talk about the indirect care. One of the most amazing stories, and I do want to get to Vic. We'll give it to you in a moment, Vic. One of the most amazing stories, Roz, that I have heard and studied is a story about the woman at the well. This is a story in Scripture where Jesus specifically targets this conversation with this woman who was ostracized for a number of reasons. This is not a religious podcast, and so the details of what happened is not necessarily important. But what I will say is that he focused his attention on this woman, and as I believe Anita said earlier, he saw her as a person. He viewed her as a person and communicated to her as such. The outcome of that, the result of that, was her then in turn going back to a place where she was not accepted, communicating a mass message. This is before social media and all types of platforms we got to mass communicate, and told the story of how there was a guy that saw me as a person. And this particular guy, y'all need to check out because he's that good. He's that special. And what I'm hearing from you, Roz, what I'm taking away from this as a personal challenge to improve my own work, and I hope that others take this away. And I'm taking away this thought, guys. It's the idea that while we may not serve the whole family directly, it's the fact that by serving their loved one, we have the possibility of changing more than just that one life that is hitting our data set. Now, see, we count the data set for funding purposes, and that one person counts as one butt in the seat, one pair of eyeballs in the Zoom platform, one person who's completing the program, move on to the next phase. We don't have a thought or narrative, and nor do funders ask this question, but I think as providers it's something to consider. We don't think about the narrative of that one person having an impact on their children, their spouse or significant other, their parents, their brothers and sisters, and others that they care about. And while you may not ever get the chance to count their family as members of your program, which will advance the cause of your nonprofit and your data set, consider the fact that your work will reverberate beyond that one person. And if you continue to do what you do and do it well and serve everybody that is a part of your program well, consider the fact, as Roz said, that there's this indirect care that you've been providing all this time, and lives are being changed because of you. This is why we do what we do. This is why this podcast exists. This is why the nonprofit arena is special, because we think about service and serving others. Roz, I appreciate that so much. As always, you always add value. Vic, want to get you in here, brother. Any reflections, man? I mean, you've been in the room for a minute. We're talking about thinking about your nonprofit differently. We've heard some really good stuff. Vic, welcome to the podcast. What do you got for us?
Hey, Dr. Clark, I appreciate you bringing me up. Hey, Roz, always good to see you. I honestly came in because I saw, one, you were hosting the room, Dr. Clark, and two, Ms. Roz Jones was in it, so I came to be a flower on the wall. I appreciate you bringing me up, but my reflection is this. I don't work with nonprofits. I don't have a background in dealing with nonprofits, but I do have clients as a speaker who are nonprofits, and they are bringing me in. Two different ones are bringing me in to, one, serve their audience and who they help, and the other group is bringing me in to serve the people who work in the nonprofit. And so as you talk about thinking about nonprofits differently, taking care of people, it made me think about how these two organizations are thinking of ways to serve their people, both internally and externally. Bringing me in to talk to the group who works for the organization. In working with the organizer, she expressed to me that if our people are getting fed, they will feed our people much better. And so I hope that contributes to the conversation and how it relates to my background.
Nah, Vic, no, you're hitting it right, man. Let me just put into context for those that have been in the room with us for the past almost 60 minutes here. we talked about what do we bring to the table to help us view our nonprofit differently. One of the things we did say, Vic, I think it was Rebecca who said it earlier, that getting out of the way and allowing others to be great is a gift and a skill. And if that includes bringing people like you in to speak and to share and to offer reflections and ideas and thoughts that can help advance our performance, that is a part of it. And that does help us think differently about our nonprofits. This has been a rich experience, a rich conversation for me. Sometimes I have these conversations, I start these conversations not knowing where they're going to end up and go. And I want to say, for one, I was blessed by the conversation today. I do, really quickly, guys, I do want to just note a couple things before we wrap this afternoon. I just want to tell everybody thank you and appreciate you for being with us in this particular podcast episode. Appreciate you guys listening, hanging out with us. Number two, for those that were in the room, if you enjoyed this conversation, if you enjoyed what we introduced to you today, if you enjoyed the thoughts that were shared, then I want to personally invite you to the Nonprofit Fundraising Master Class. This master class was designed by nonprofit leaders for nonprofit leaders to help you simplify your fundraising approaches without chasing funders. We go through specific details on how to do that, and we help you build your strategic plan, your fundraising plan, your master grant application, and your master budget. If this is the type of help you're looking for, then go ahead and register for our next cohort by going to nonprofitfundingstrategies.com. Again, that's nonprofitfundingstrategies.com. With that being said, Anita, Rebecca, Roz, Vic, thank you so much for being part of the show, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
Thank you, Dr. Clark.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Everyone have a great evening.
Truly appreciate you. Take care.
Hey everyone, this is Dr. William Clark here. I just wanted to come on really quick and say thank you for listening to another episode of the Dr. William Clark podcast. We are here to help you simplify your processes so you can triple fundraising results to support the programs that mean so much to you. Would you be so kind to like, comment, and share this particular podcast? We are indebted to you for being faithful listeners to this particular podcast show, and we want to continue to spread this message to other people who can benefit from it. So please share this podcast episode and entire show with your colleagues, your friends, and people who you know can benefit from this. You can connect with us in two ways. You can go to DrWilliamPClark.com. Again, that's DrWilliamPClark.com, or you can visit us at MySixFigureFunding.com. Again, that's MySixFigureFunding.com. There you can register for our free upcoming webinar, How to Triple Fundraising Results Without Chasing Funders. It is possible, and I share with you the secrets on how to do that. Thanks again. We'll see you in the next episode.